we are going to be looking at some key issues here this morning in our discussion segment, most especially as we glide towards the 2023 presidential election. Now, very recently, we understand that Professor Pat Utomi and some other eminent Nigerians, gathered in Lagos recently to talk on the possibility of, having a third force. Now, the issue of third force in our politics in the country has always been something that comes anytime we're about to have a presidential election. Well, I remember the last presidential election, we had it. The big question that people ask is, how come this third force, most times, it doesn't see the light of the day? Why some persons also say that it does not really have any impact in our politics? Because it still has to be one of the two big parties, the All Progressives Congress or the People's Democratic Party that wins elections in the country. Well, I'm not saying that other parties are not big, but if you are a political historian in this country, you recall that these two major parties have always taken the day in our politics. Well, as we make preparation for the 2023 election, let's look at let's examine the third force and the major plans in Nigeria. Now, to discuss all this this morning, we are so privileged to have Mr. Paul Okungbowa, who is a youth advocate and also a renowned educationist in Nigeria. Now, I decided to bring him on board this morning because some of the plans on the third force, or some of the talks around the third force measure, surrounds around the youth. Some say that this third force may just be a conglomeration of the youth this time. So we're going to be examining that as we talk along this morning. We also have pharmacist Uyi Oriahi here, who is a political analyst and also a public affairs analyst too. Let me start with Mr. Paul Okungbowa. You're welcome to this program.
Thank you very much.
And also pharmacist Uyi Oriahi, you're welcome to. Yeah. So just like what we're trying to look at this morning, the issue of third force in Nigeria comes anytime we're making preparation for our elections. And this time, there seems to be all indications that the third force may just be a combination of youths coming together to form a political platform so that they can take over power. Now, Mr. Paul Okungbowa, what do you make of the third force major plan in our elections in the country?
Thank you, Evans. More often than not, this talk about third force always comes up, like you noted, towards elections, or when elections are coming in this country, general elections mostly. And the ruling class or the the party in opposition who is seeking to take power from the ruling class, and the ruling class seem to be in contention, while the other parties are seeming too small to contest. And the idea of a merger, a conglomeration of some sort, would indicate the very concept about the third force. I think this idea about the third force thing is mainly caused by the electoral umpire, the INEC, or whatever body that is responsible for elections in Nigeria. Because politics, for me, it's a time to measure the life and the strength of the people, their academic strength, their intellectual strength, because it has to do with the choice of a candidate who will lead you for another 4 years, 3 years as the case might be. So it's a time to measure where the people stand. So when you talk about the third force, the reason we're talking about the third force in the present light of it is that we are not confident of candidates that will be fielded in the ruling party and the opposition party, as it were. So for me, my understanding of this third force in these coming elections is not necessarily that the youth would agglomerate and form a political party. It may come to that. But the third force in the 2023 elections is going to be the consciousness that started in Nigeria 2 years ago, where the young persons are now tired of the ruling class and the establishment. Because look at it. Since 1960, when this country was bettered, there are people who have been in power even before 1960, who are in power today. The present president, for example, has been in power, as it were, for that long, and is still in power today. There are people who have been in the corridor of power for more than 30 years, more than 40 years. The question is, when I saw video feeds and I read the histories and the growth that has been experienced in Dubai for 50 years since they found that land, and I see that my darling country is older than Dubai, the question I ask myself is that, what is the difference between these two countries? It's simply the leadership. So if the leadership of this country from the 1960 to this date have not been able to bring this country to where it should be, I think it's hard time they retire and try the youth. I know that one of the problems we're going to be confronted with is that we actually have a youth body that is more or less confused. But among this youth body, there are those that have shown strength, that have shown tenacity of purpose. However, the structure of Nigeria is actually what encourages you or discourages politics for young people. The third force for me is a consciousness. It's a movement that's already started. If you don't know, Mr. Evans, I'm telling you for the first time that the Nigerian young people don't want to vote the old people into office. Even if they want to vote the old people into office, they're actually looking out for those who have expressed some mental, intellectual dexterity, indicating that they can lead this country to its height. I'm a parent now. It's quite scary for me that for another 4 years, if a baby is born today, in another 4 years, that baby from 2023 to when that person leaves office in the first term, that baby will be like an average of 5 to 6 years of age. That child's life, the first 5, 6 years of that child's age will be determined by those in power, the policy they make for those children. We often don't make futuristic policies. So the third force is a consciousness. We are actually tired of the old establishments. So for me, any of the ruling party shouldn't bring old people. They should bring young and smart people that have been proven. There are Nigerians who have a history. Nigerians know themselves. The internet does not lie. There are Nigerians in the service, in the private sector. There are Nigerians even in the public sector who have leadership quality in them. I think like the football club would always do, look for the talent that can deliver the goals. The political parties should go and look for those young people who can deliver, because the third force is young people voting in young people who can lead this country in the right direction, not the old establishments.
Okay. All right, Pharmacist Uyoriake, the third force major plan in Nigeria, it's something that perhaps we're not discussing for the first time. When election comes, most especially presidential election, we always have this scenario, playing out. We hear people coming together, trying to make a platform so that they can also hold on to leadership. But the big question that we ask is, what is really the sincerity of purpose in trying to break out from political parties, existing political parties, or two major political parties, as it were, in Nigeria, to form their own political parties? Because some say that this set of people are perhaps greedy, rebellious politicians that also want to cling on to power at all costs. Pharmacist, what do you make of the third force major plan in Nigeria?
Well, let me look at it from the perspective of this attempted merger, as it were. Our country, the issue of merger is not new to us, especially judging by what our political history has told us. Even pre and post-independence, we have had to see people talking about merger, and we need to understand why they are talking about merger. During the NPN, UPN, and in those days, NPN won power in 1979. Before the next election, there was a need for the other political parties to rally around themselves and take over power from NPN, seeing that by virtue of being in power in 4 years, they have grown so big and so massive that it was not going to be an easy task for a single party to wrest power from them. Now, the question is, why did it fail? UPN, NPP, NPP, JNPP, PROP, they were having a major talk. Why did it fail? Basically because of primordial considerations and partisan, selfish partisan interest within the party, which were reflected in, this is the point I'm going to, it was reflected in how do we share the party structure, the leadership structure of the party, one. How do we share the political offices when we finally get to power? They could not agree on these issues. Now, the question is, nobody considered what their plans really were for the entire nation.
Yeah.
It was always a question of what comes to us by way of our partisan interest and our primordial considerations. So it failed.
So what became the implication of that?
It failed. NPN won the election again. it will always fail because those are not the considerations. Up to this point, those are the basic considerations in all the measures that we've been talking about. Like my friend said here, what makes this one a little bit different, that paints a different picture is that there is a force that is coming that is saying, well, we don't really care what political party comes to power.
The individual matters now.
But we do not want recycled individuals to keep doing what they are doing that is not benefiting this country, that is undermining everything that is positive about this country. So that is coming in. And in my opinion, that third force should not be looked at from the perspective of a political party representation.
Yeah.
It should be looked at as a consciousness amongst the youths. For example, party primaries are in the offing. Now, what are the youths within the party structure looking at? Are they looking to throw up these regular people just because they are, putting money their way? Are they really thinking of how to make a difference so that we cannot begin to tell the same stories we have been telling since this APC government came on board? And ironically, the only measure that has succeeded in this country is the APC measure.
Yeah.
It succeeded. And look at what we have. We cannot even call them a credible alternative to the PDP that was existing in the past. So having a measure, as far as they are concerned, is an avenue to wrest power from the ruling class, from the ruling party.
That is
having wrested power from them, they lack ideas on what to do with the power. They just continue their trade and commerce kind of politics that throws us into this situation that we are today. We are in a very terrible situation today, if you don't know. So now, there has to be a third force. We all agree. The third force should be registered under every political platform.
That is true.
The third force should be a force within those platforms, not necessarily a force standing in isolation to battle either of these two parties. Because even right now, if you want to form a third force, you must metamorphose into an already existing political platform. Because it is even too late now to register new political parties. So the third force is a consciousness. It's a consciousness. And if Party A throws out a candidate that we know has never stood in the interest of our country or in their region, then youth should rally around, both within the party and outside, and understand that they are a third force to have the last say. Also, sir, some of our youths must actually develop common sense. Why do I say that? There are some of our youths who would rather go to their regions, their states, to be representative of the people. They force their way to the national level to become president. They want to be president at the national level. Well, our political space has not yet grown to that level where you think that you can just come from somewhere without a track record of leadership and somebody gives you power at the middle. What I'm saying in essence is that you say you are a social person, you come from a particular location. Rally the youths around there to give you the vote to represent these people at the councillorship level, the State House of Assembly level, and all those grassroots levels, so that we can begin to see the effect of this third force in giving them. Because if you do not have power at this basal level, you are not going to function very well at it.
Just to add to this, sir, I think, Mr. Evans, part of the bigger problem we have in Nigeria political space is that at the ward level, which is the basic unit of political engagement, you observe that those who call the shots are mostly the riffraffs and the uneducated class. The old people who don't have anything doing, who are jobless. They are the ones who call the shots at that level. So at that level, as a young and an idealistic young man, they don't respect you. They are afraid of you. They think that you will not be loyal, as the word is often said. They think that your ideas are not tenable because you don't have the mental wherewithal to rationalize what you're saying and know that you can put this country or your world in the right perspective. So when you have those uneducated class, those old people there at the world level calling the shots, that cannot rationalize where the youths stand, that cannot see the future that the youth sees, that cannot analyze the politics of this country and see from the dimension where the young people are seeing it from, we are going nowhere. Okay. So the first thing is that the young people must begin to hold key representative positions at what level? It's the only way, else the third force is still a joke, because the third force will still be by the proclamation of the old ruling class. So for us to retire those old people, the young people must find their way to elective offices at world level. And we must shun this politics of giving money and vote for you. Okay. Oh, it's a mentality that has destroyed us and will keep destroying us.
All right, now I know that Paul Okumbawa, you are a youth advocate, so when you have the opportunity to talk for youths, you don't hold back. But there is something that we must look at, gentlemen, because I have taken time to look at the two major political parties in the country. Of course, all of the parties are major, but for sake of emphasis, let's say the PDP and the APC. Yeah. Now, they've got the youth angle, the youth platform in these parties. And of course, we've got some youths as the youth leaders and all that. Now, these same youths, they canvass for these same people we refer to as old and timed out politicians. Yeah. Now, we are making preparations again for our presidential election. And of course, these same youths, they've started canvassing for these old people. Now, Paul Okumbawa, do you think the Nigerian youth, does he know what he wants? Are you sure?
The truth of the matter is that the Nigerian youth is become a victim of the circumstances created by the old ruling class. As a matter of fact, it will seem as though it's almost deliberate to keep them where they are. Don't unleash their strength. Don't let them know their strength. Because if you observe the elections of this country, it is the youth that actually determines those old people getting to office. The old people don't come out to vote for their kind. The youth are the ones. So the ruling class knows this. So because essentially Nigerians are poor, uninformed, they come with monies, they come with all sort of entities to get them going. That is why the most interesting part of any political party is actually the youth leadership of that country. But more of that party, but more than not, you even see those who are youth representatives or youth representations for these parties are old and timed out people, or youths who are in the Bewa squad, the ones that don't have the mental wherewithal to rationalize the essence of governance. They are the ones that are now to lead people like us. We will never follow. Because you are telling me to follow a man who has not shown leadership skills, who has not shown that he can provide leadership for me and my children. You want me to follow him. So in this coming election, sir, the antics and the tactics are already there to lobotomize the youths once more. But don't forget one thing, sir. The EndSARS was a revelation indeed. It showed already that the youths are waking up from their slumber. We may not get it completely right this time, but the consciousness will be bettered in 2023 elections. Trust me, any political party who wants to bring old and retired people, Nigerians are now funny. They will collect your money and go and vote for whoever they want to vote for. And this is the thing. If the old ruling class has not perfected ways of keeping this country in slumber and in perpetual misery, why won't they allow the Electoral Acts? If you allow the Electoral Act, Mr. Evans Onokogie, who does not have a political portfolio, who does not have a political hegemony, who is not from an aristocratic background, on the basis of his charisma and his person, and for the fact that community knows him, he will vie for public office and he will win because the electoral process is transparent, is fair and fair. Why can't we have a situation where the card readers will reflect all the politically registered parties? That way we don't have to do collation at the world level. We don't have to do it there. Just thumbprint on the party you are voting, and there's a central body that sees all the results as they are coming in. All political party representations are watching it on a big screen, looking at all the votes as they come. Why can't we have that in this country? Because they know when we have that in this country, they can win elections.
Okay. All right, now, TV, and we are examining the third force major plans. Plans are on, there's no doubt about that. I told you that a few days ago, Professor Patu told me, and even the former INEC boss, Atahiru Jega, was also in that meeting. Trying to put together the possibility of having a third force, putting a third force together so that it can possibly come up as a political party for the 2023 presidential election. Now, pharmacist Uyore here, perhaps the problem is bigger than we think, because for the average electorate, the third force may just be another political party that is not the two major political parties. But the biggest problem that we have in our hands is that these same old politicians that we run away from, they are the same people that pull out, converge together and form another platform. So how do you want to, the plight of the electorate, it's so serious. So how does the electorate, help himself out in all of this?
Well, like I said before, when that platform comes on board, I don't think they are going to offer much difference, anything different from what they have been offering. I mean, as a political platform. Now, the third force is the youth, that they should enlist into.
That's the way you are seeing it this time, that the third force should be the
youth that they must enlist. But I fear a lot, because during the last presidential elections, there were some credible Nigerians who came, used different platforms to appeal to the electorate. But still, the electorate didn't have that consciousness to understand that an opportunity was before them again to steer the ship of state using their votes. We let it go. But you will not also blame them, because at that level of our political development, at that level of our democratic development, you will discover that these people had everything, figured out. It was going to be very difficult to have your votes achieve what it should achieve.
It's planned out.
It was planned out. So no matter what you try to do, that is why, considering this topic, one of the things I thought about last night was the way INEC has brought itself to a level, to infuse transparency into the process. For example, in the last governorship election in Edo State, results were uploaded from the polling units as a cross-check with the actual collation process. And what we got could not be challenged in court. The only things that were being challenged in court were issues like certificates and stuff like that. Nobody challenged that the outcome of that election. So now the INEC has gotten us to this point. Remember the wranglings that was going on in the National Assembly some months ago, whether results should be uploaded electronically. You saw the way some of those who now parade themselves as presidential candidates, how they voted, and how they came to say, the reason we voted against the transmission was because there is no network coverage in our constituency. What an excuse. We also knew what went under. That political class that we have in the various houses of assembly right now, they know exactly what is at stake. They are looking to be relevant. They do not want a situation where the third force will come and sweep them out by using certain means and all that. They wanted us to go back to that old system so that they can. So if Utomi and Atairu Jega feel that they have what it takes, they should come to appeal to the youth.
Now, the very big question we ask in that respect is that do we think that the third force can have the political muscle to really wrestle with some of these established political parties? I'll leave that question.
In ideal situations, that is why every right-thinking country places limits on political donations and fundings, as it were, because you don't want to monetize the entire process and make it seem about money. In an ideal situation, money should be what we're talking about. It should be capacity, as it were.
The problem, you need money, whether
yes,
you like it or
of course, funds. Of course.
You need
the problem the youth are going to have in this country in the coming elections is also a problem that is stage managed by the ruling class and the old establishments. The one way to have this country work on autopilot is to let the INEC to be truly independent. Else, the youth will keep collecting money, and because they know their votes will not count. In the last election, sir, the youths were not really enthusiastic because they feared that their votes will not count. But in a situation where the structure is built, one of the criticisms Obama offered against Nigeria is that Nigeria has strong people, not strong institutions. We should leave that tradition of strong people and begin to build institutions that will live our generation and the generation that is to come. One of such ways is if this ruling party APC wants to do something for Nigerians as a parting gift to Nigerians, they should front a credible candidate that can win elections on behalf of them. Then very importantly, they should begin to dismantle some of the political structures that have kept this country in bondage. Because the reason why the old establishment will keep coming again and again is because they have the money, they have the means. So what they don't have is political ideas and policies that will put this country in the right perspective. And my worry is that they don't care. Those who built the Dubai, those who made it the world's destination, according to Steve Harvey, his survey of it clearly shows that they love their people. They wanted to do something for their people. Is it the case that Nigerian leaders don't love Nigerians? We don't even need them to respond to that. We know the answer. They don't. To start with, in the healthcare of this country is completely down. Wherein, pray you don't have a lifestyle disease. Pray you don't have life-threatening issues.
But that may just be your own opinion.
No, it's not my opinion. It's there. It's there. Let's not begin to be clever about this. Even for a pregnant woman to go to the labor ward, your fear is that she may not come back.
Oh, yes.
We are completely down. So don't begin to give us the impression some things are working. Nothing is working, sir. When it's working, it is the people who will testify of it, not the ruling class. Okay. The ruling class should stop telling us what they've done. Let the voters, let the people talk about it, because they are seeing it, they can feel it.
All right, pharmacist.
Please, let me add to this.
Yeah.
You see, this third force, this consciousness, I think those who are at the helm, those who really want to buy into this pool of ideas and momentum that is coming with it, should also understand one thing, that this country is divided into regions and states. There are places where you have your strength. You understand? So rely on those places as a foothold. Because I fear one thing, that, like I said before, they go to the very central to try to pull power and make a mockery of things at the basal level. You do not have credible people as councillors.
That is very true.
You do not have credible people as House of Assembly candidates, State House of Assembly, and so on and so forth. Now, there are areas. For my former party, the ADP, they knew that they had strength in the West. They were able to win 2 legislative seats
In the West.
And that was the reason they remained as a registered political party even after so many others were deregistered. Now, we also came to Ego. We discovered that in Ego they have certain strengths, and we concentrated there. Everybody knew. I was the representative of the party in Ego, and I came third, closely behind the first 2 political parties, without the resources that they have, without the followership that they have, and all of that. So these measures, this third force, should understand that there are areas where their strength lies, and they should focus on those areas. To me, it's a process.
Yeah.
It's another 4 years after 2023, there's going to be another election. But if you do not have representatives as a party in some of these levels, it's going to be difficult for you to always strive to attain to taking power at the center. So we should look at that. And that is why, like he said, there should be an infusion of youth into the world system of our political parties, so that much of what is determined at that level rests on the shoulders of the youth. That is what should. It should be strategic. It should be something you leave to the media to make noise about and all of that. These are very strategic approach to taking this country from the hands of those who feel that this country belongs to them entirely. Those who promise proper health care, good health care for the nation, but immediately they step there, they go on medical tourism.
My worry about this scenario you are painting right now is that, in as much as we see that to put this country right, ideally, we must start playing politics at what level with intellectuals and smart people. My worry is that majority of the youth who are concerned, who are active players in politics, are mostly the riffraffs, the bow-smoking young boys and the riffraff among the girls. The boys who are intellectuals and smart are actually working for their daily bread. They are actually trying to survive. So your policy must be able to make them go and get, first of all, their voters registers. Yes. Do you know amongst the intellectual youths, a large number of them don't have voters card? Because they know that over the years, their votes never counted. It is these same people that can be legitimized with the money. Is those to count. Sir, I still want to see 2023 as a test case of where this consciousness is taking us to. I know it started already, but this uneducated class, these boys in the streets, these girls in the streets who are old enough to vote, would they not still queue up for money? Because they are not intellectually smart enough to know they are mortgaging their life. They probably have. They probably will hold on to the tradition of what have they been doing before. Is there anything they do for us before? They said they will do this, what they didn't do. Let me just get my money now and forget about it. And they are the majority of those who have voters card. We're still in soup. But the point is that we've started already.
Oh, yes.
The consciousness will continue.
Okay. Now, gentlemen, let us look at time because we're counting months already between now and 2023 presidential election. Is less than 15 months from now. So we're counting months. So some persons say, some political analysts say that perhaps politicians who want to form a merger, they shouldn't bother because they really don't have the time to start merging into a third force. I mean, you need plenty of time to organize yourselves together, to begin to form structures, to begin to look for a name, and maybe to also to register, so to say, even if INEC may not register them. So, gentlemen, do we think we have the time? If we don't have the time, don't you think that this merger plans is an effort in futility?
So, as far as I'm concerned, thinking about a merger, in the in form of a platform at this point in time, it's an exercise in futility. It's an exercise in futility. Probably they just might get through. Maybe political party coalescing, to present a candidate. Like I read Kingsley Moghalu.
Who is also is part of the major plans.
Yes, he said about the 6 political platforms are talking about coming together to project candidates for various positions. Well, good. The extent to which I think that will help us is those will also give each of the major political parties, it will give them some trouble in determining which of them emerges eventually. But I still don't think that our immediate solution lies there. I think our solution lies in what we want to consider the third force, the youths. They should be galvanized. In fact, they should be galvanized to understand that they are projecting people, that they may just be projecting people who do not have their interests at heart.
Fam, I beg to differ here.
Just let him land.
They just like represent people who do not have their interests at heart. You understand? And we should go into the streets to talk to these people. Get your voters card. If you cannot determine who comes through the ranks in the political structure to become a candidate, you can well determine which of them suits your purpose the most.
Okay. Now, Paul Okumbawa, 2 days ago, the APC youth gathered in Ibadan, to precise, and they actually demanded that, hey, it's our time. It's time. The leadership of the APC, the old men in the APC, so to say, please let us begin to be the leaders now. That's the APC youth. Now, if PDP youths do the same thing, don't you think we're looking at a possibility of maybe the youths taking it over from any of these parties? Now, if that becomes the case, because for most Nigerians, they don't want to see perhaps the next president comes from any of these parties that we're talking about. Gentlemen, let's talk along that line. Paul Okumbawa.
Well, I think those who are talking about having a merger in the form of having a political party that could be more or less like a front for young people to contest elections are not completely out of point. As a matter of fact, they are true to the extent that the existing political parties have been sort of hijacked by the ruling class. If you ask the APC to front a young person who is idealistic enough to push this country forward, that young person is going to go through the ranks of those old people, their stratas, their yearnings and aspirations, their demands. Because he's not going to get there.
And he may be funded too.
Yes, of course he will be funded by them. And compromise becomes the order of the day. He might get there. You see a young person in office, you expect too much from that young person. But the young person is just in office physically. The person doesn't preside. Budgets are still signed in one leader's house. What is to be done is still determined by some old carcass who will sit down like, we made you, we put you there, do as we're telling you. If the opposition party at the federal level, PDP, does the same, we're still going to have that same challenge within the ranks of power. I think the brightest thing for Nigerians to do, I don't know how realistic it is the existing political parties should merge and form a front and have an objective to rescue this country from the old establishment and begin to pray that the INEC the INEC does the right thing. Because irrespective of what they do, if the INEC is not going to do the right thing, the elections will be compromised in such a way and manner that is so tailored and mechanically done and clinically done that if you get to the Supreme Court will uphold the judgment that you least expect. Because it's been tailored, it's been grafted. They are smart people. These old people are very smart. They know how to rig elections. They know how to prepare it so that if it gets to the Supreme Court, you'll just be tired.
Okay.
But let me add this.
Yeah.
Let me add this. You see, I still refuse to believe that that merger can swing the
political tide.
Yes, especially at the center. I think that merger should look downwards. You know, that's what I think. Look at the base. Because at the end of the day, that is where leaders are made. That we will recognize. That is where we can have people we can check their track records, even as they progress. Nigeria, by the special grace of God, is not coming to an end in 2023, neither 2027. So the plan should be a long-term plan. Let us not have hope in this white elephant project. To me, it's a white elephant project. For you to think that in 2023 you are going to take power from either of APC or PDP, I don't think it's going to work. But I think there is a lot you can do at the level of the House of Assembly, at the level of House of Rep, at the level of even the Senate, you know, to wrest power from those who are already there and also become determinants of what becomes at.
So that's why you're advocating for where these third measures may be strong.
Yes, that's where they will be strong. So that in subsequent elections, they can boastfully say, we are a platform now that can swing the votes.
But what you are saying is only correct because, it's only true and very correct because we do not have faith that INEC will do the right thing.
Okay, now let's leave that there, gentlemen, so that we can attend to the other topic for the day. Now, if you stay in Benin City, of course, you would notice something that seems to be very, very disturbing. Talking about the way youths, some Nigerian youths are alleged to be involved in money-making ritual. Well, money-making ritual spree, you may call it. If you take a look at the social media, we cannot be showing you some of the pictures, some of the footage that we have in our social media platforms because they are very, very gory. But even at that, we as as a station, we are doing all we need to do to discountenance it, one, and secondly, to discourage our youths from this venture, which seems to have taken the order, of the day. You see some parents are even alleged to even encourage their parents to go into money-making ritual.